Hi there, Shortcuts. Stephen here. This is the first video for Wednesday, January 24th. The price list will go out at 9 p.m. Sydney time as usual. Two lists this week, plus a special video tomorrow will be a surprise. Tonight I've got jazz, blues, soul, and funk, and I also have some classic rock and hip hop to come as well. So let's start here. I've been looking forward to talking about this record. It's a relatively new discovery, and then I found a pretty special copy. This is Headhunters. Now, Headhunters were a band formed in '73 by Herbie Hancock. Handpicked musicians. I don't know the history in a lot of depth because they're pretty new to me, but the literature I've read suggests that Hancock wanted a band that could live with the jazz fusion sound that he heard in his head. And he wanted something that could live with Miles Davis and others. And the band he picked supported him on the majestic Headhunters record, and then they made some of their own. Now, a while ago, I had their first album, Survival of the Fittest, which most people seem to think is the best, particularly because it's got this one track, God Made Me Funky, which is, it's does what it says in the tin. But I prefer the second record. Now, the copy I found, I've not got a duplicate. I'm just going to keep my kind of normal pressing. What I found is the Japanese white label promo of Straight from the Gate, the second album by Headhunters. Now, it does have an Obi, but you can see there's a small chunk missing. I wonder how that happened, because the rest of it's in fantastic condition, and the rest of it is wonderful. So what do you get? Now, this one came a few years after Survival of the Fittest. What you get, to my ears, is a record that is more rock-oriented. You will hear more guitar riffs and almost fuzz guitar at times. The musicianship is amazing. And there are some songs with vocals which are not my favorites. They tend to, I think, date the record a little bit. The tracks that are pretty predominantly instrumental are superb. The opening track, Straight from the Gate, is pretty amazing. But I really like the second track, which is called Mayonnaise. And it starts with this guitar riff that really wouldn't be out of place on Something by the Meters, and then launches into this really cool drum-driven kind of rhythm thing. Really like it. I don't think they're quite as good as the Meters, but if you like the Meters, give this a listen. And it's a wonderful pressing, super, super rare. I'm not sure it's even on Discogs, but lovely condition. The Headhunters, Straight from the Gate. That's the kick-off record. The second record tonight is not what you're going to expect from me. I almost let off with this record. And now that I say I haven't, I regret it. Oh man, this record, what to make of this? This is something. Now, this is an album called Butterfly by Barbra Streisand. Now, look at that sleeve. Yep, it's called Butterfly. And I'm going to talk more about it. Now, that is the front cover. But look at the back sleeve. Look at that. That is amazing. Really beautiful. The inside, it's a hard cardboard gatefold. Has more, I guess, traditional Barbra Streisand stuff. So what do you get? This record is early to mid-70s. I think, from what I can tell, and I haven't spent a lot of time researching this one because the sleeve and a couple of the tracks are what I want to talk about. It was, I don't know, 15th to 16th record, and it was wholly ridiculed at the time because it was produced by her then boyfriend, a Mr. I think it's Tony Peters, who had no musical experience. But what she did do was recruit some crack musicians, including this guy called Tom Scott, who is credited really with rescuing this album from the pits of hell. I gave it a listen. Wow, it's really interesting. The track that has stuck with me is the cover version of David Bowie's Life on Mars. What's really interesting is he absolutely loathed it. If you look at, there's a couple of people who've uploaded it onto YouTube, and you look at the comments, there may be 30 comments, 5 from Barbra Streisand fans, and 25 from Bowie fans saying, Bowie hated this, Bowie hated this. I quite like it. It is more of a, she does turn it into a show tune when there's a surprise. But it's really interesting. And some other cover versions here as well. Simple Man, Crying Time, Let the Good Times Roll. It is not a horrible record. And that is genius. We've got to clean the palette after Barbra Streisand to a certain extent. And I've chosen this. This is one of my favourite Japanese pressings of all time. It has been on the list numerous times. Every time I see it, I buy it. People put it on the list, people buy it from me, and they send me a note going, holy crap, this thing's awesome. It is Sade's second record, and probably her masterpiece, Promise. If you've heard The Sweetest Taboo, which most people have, you have a sense of what this record is. It is perfectly crafted, modern soul. And I'm saying modern even though it was recorded in the mid-80s. It still sounds like it could have been released yesterday. Her voice is still silky smooth. It goes down like my Glenmorangie Signet up there that my wife got me for my birthday. It goes down a treat. If you haven't dived into this album, give yourself a little treat and do so. Now, the next record is not a Japanese press. It is a record I like a lot. And it is this. It is Chet by Chet Baker. Now, this record is still sealed. It's the copy that I reach for, even though I've got a Japanese copy. I actually think it's better. I'm going to show you what it is. Can you see? It's a craft release, mastered from the original AAA tapes, cut from the original analog masters by Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio. Now, I'm a big fan of Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio because of the work that he does with Vinyl Me Please, which is a record club that I'm a big fan of, and I know some of you out there are as well. It's a wonderful record. It sounds beautiful. Honestly, beautiful. This sleeve says it all too. This is so laid back and so sultry. This is the record that you listen to your better half with. Now, the one thing I'm going to say is it, and I don't know how I did this, but I've ended up with a little damage at the top of the record, which is a shame. So I'm going to have the price. It's going to be cheap. But the record itself, it should be perfect, and it is wonderful. All right, now, this is a record I've been searching for about a year. There's a young man who's a member of this club called Ivon, who at one point mentioned this record to me. Nightlights by Jerry Mulligan. Now, I found a copy, probably 4 months ago, and I've been on a mission to find another. So I sent a note to the guys in Shibuya. I was like, you got to get me one. I want one for the club. Now you've got me one. And this is it. Now this is pressing from, I think it's 78 or 79. It's on the Philips label. SFX 10543. I haven't found too much information on, other than there are some folks on the Hoffman forums who rave about it, and I think there might be some comments on Discogs as well. If you don't know the record, it isn't a million miles away in some respects from the Chet Baker sound. It is super sultry. Jim Hall's guitar is a standout. It's really, really lovely. And those Japanese presses of those late 50s, early 60s jazz records, I don't know what they did. I mean, I've got some MoFi jazz records, and some of them are cut, these double records at 45 RPM, so you have to get up every between 9 and 12 minutes and flip it round. I get a lot of pleasure from these high quality Japanese pressings where I can listen to it the way the artist intended, and that is great. I've got a couple of unusual ones to come. This is Peter Green from Fleetwood Mac. This is his 1981 release, What You Gonna Do, which was, I think, maybe the third of his comeback records after he kind of re-entered the fray and made some music. Probably the easiest listening of his later era records. Doesn't live with anything he did with Fleetwood Mac. It's very, very different. His voice is almost like a Chris Rea kind of mellow tone. The instrumentation is, I think sometimes it lets him down, but what is undeniable is when he straps on whatever that guitar is. I think he's got definitely a few Strat songs on here, and just plays, and it is still an absolute pleasure. And this thing's hard to find. In the rest of the world, it has a different sleeve, but in Japan it has this kind of a thing, which I think is more suitable. Interestingly, on the Trash label, it's definitely not trash. It's an interesting record. I love my white label promos, and this is one of my all-time favorites. It's the second time I've had it. It's the London Bo Diddley sessions. An amazing gatefold, fun record. Look at this. Just brilliant. I'll read you some of the who's who. You got Bo Diddley. You've got a whole bunch of trombones, saxophones, all that kind of business. You've got Roy Wood. You've got, basically every jazz musician who was anyone who wanted to play with the blues turned up to these sessions. It's got a bit of a weird reputation. Some of these London sessions, which became a bit of a thing for black artists in the 70s, aren't that highly regarded, but I really like this one, and he's really into it, and his square guitar is still utterly iconic. Now, what comes next is my favorite album on this list. I love this record. It is the second record by the wonderful Cannonball Adly Quintet. And one of the gems of my collection is this exact pressing. I think it's from 75 or 76, signed by Cannonball Adderley and Nat Adderley, on the Fontana Records, Riverside production. It is an absolute delight. You've got, all of you probably are aware how much I love Bobby Timmons by now. So you've got Bobby Timmons, you've got Nat Adderley on I think he plays trumpet, maybe the cornet, and then you've got Cannonball Adly on the saxophone. If you haven't given this a spin by now, give it a go. I got this copy really cheaply, so it will be a really good price. All right, now the next two jazz records are interesting. I sent the folks in Shibuya a note, and I said, can you please send me what you think are the best presses that are affordable from on these two records, John Coltrane's I Love Supreme and Bill Evans' Portrait in Jazz. Now the press that they sent me for Love Supreme is this. For those of you who haven't seen that amazing gatefold, I'm going to read it out so you can look up the comments. It is IMP 88060. To say that the Discogs reviews are revelatory would be doing it a disservice. People love this record. I don't, but people do. And this pressing is meant to be in the nuts. In the same way is this, which is the Riverside Black Label repress from 76 of Bill Evans' Portrait in Jazz. Now what we've got in this bundle is a lot of piano, Japanese, saxophone driven, melodic, accessible, beautiful jazz. Jerry Mulligan, Bill Evans, Cannonball Adly. Not so much John Coltrane's I Love Supreme. That's more of an investment, and certainly maybe a record that finds you at some stage in your life. It hasn't got there for me. But there's a lot of really cool jazz in that list and really nice presses of them as well. All right, now two to go, two very different records. This one, surely approaching the status of Shortcuts royalty, is Gumbo by the wonderful Dr. John. Yada's yummy burgers and hot dogs. Talking about gatefolds, that's as good as it gets as well. Love this record, great pressing. Almost a very idiosyncratic record, but that's what Dr. John is. He is his own self, but you've got Tipatina, Stack of Lee. There's a lot to love about this thing, and a list as long as your arm of New Orleans musicians who lent their craft to what is a great record. Not my personal favorite of his. This is my second favorite, but I do love this. And finally, give the people what they want by the utterly wonderful Jimmy Cliff. Those Jimmy Cliff records on Japanese vinyl are cheap and great. So there you have it. A lot of jazz, a little bit of funk, a little bit of easy listening, and a little bit of Barbra Streisand. Never thought I'd say that, but there you go. All doors are open in Shortcuts. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments as always. Love to hear from you. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good business. And watch out for the second list, which will be following very shortly, and a special video from tomorrow. This will be a bit of a sneak preview. I've got some t-shirts that I've had made from designs that I like, and some of them I've made myself, and I've got some spares. I'm going to show you guys on video, and if anyone would like some, you're more than welcome to them. All right, here comes the rest.